Hey, welcome back to the channel. I hope your day is as fantastic as your Wi-Fi signal is today. But I'm really excited to kind of share this new thing that I built in Copilot. It's an HR agent that helps my demo users better find and understand things around our policies and our benefits. And when I first joined Microsoft, and I can imagine any new person joining any new organization, comes with a variety of different challenges. One, you're starting fresh with your network. You're trying to rebuild your network, connect with new people, and foster those new relationships, as well as it can be very challenging just trying to understand and find resources, things like your benefits and policies and so forth. It can be very challenging. I see that when other organizations, I'm sure, have those similar challenges, whether you're new with the organization or you've been there for a long time, finding those resources, especially if they live in multiple places. Maybe they live in SharePoint and they live in another external service like ServiceNow. It can be challenging trying to figure out where all of this stuff lives and then interact with it and then understand it as well. So I built this HR agent called Polly to kind of help my users better understand all of those different resources, be able to find those resources much easier. And the really cool part is, you hear this a lot from Microsoft, is Copilot is the UI for AI. And it took me a moment to kind of really understand what that meant. And I'm actually going to show you a good example of that, where Copilot, when we mean by that is Copilot, you're leveraging Copilot to be able to interact with a whole bunch of different services, whether they're internal services, external services. And in this HR agent, I built the knowledge base to be able to interact with both the SharePoint site as well as a service now knowledge base. So we're leveraging Copilot to not only interact internally, but to also to interact with external resources as well. So kind of leveraging Copilot to be that UI for AI. Or yes, absolutely. It's a mouthful there. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at what the experience looks like first. And then once we understand the experience and what that looks like, then I'm going to show you the guts, how I made the agent. So are you ready? Let's get into it. All right. So what we got here is we're in Teams. We're inside of Teams, inside of Copilot, and I find this is where a lot of users will live. There's definitely we can interact with Copilot as a standalone app, and I love that experience. But I know that a lot of organizations, a lot of users will interact Copilot in the existing application or ecosystem that they're in. And so in this case, that's Teams. We can chat as well as we can interact with Copilot. So I'm in Copilot directly within Teams. And so this is the familiar experience here. But what I want to show you is the agent I made. So at the right-hand side, you see I've got this Poly Benefits and Policy Assistant. Now, I've already installed this for this user, but I made this in Copilot Studio, which means that this is an agent made by IT and then distributed as an improved app. So we can scale this app however we want within our organization. And this is an HR agent. I think it's valuable for all of my users. So I want to make sure they have it. So I built it in Studio so that I can manage, control it, and then distribute that as an approved app. So once we distribute as approved app, which I'll show you how to do, it's very easy to find. So we can go into Get Agents, and this will open up the catalog. And I'm just going to search for Polly. That's the name of my agent. That's what I've trained my users to look for. And voila, Polly sees right there. And I've already got this installed, but if I would click on it, it would have that install button there. So I don't have to worry about that. But if you're another user looking for those agents, those applications and so forth, that's the experience you would leverage. So now we're back here in Copilot. And as you can see, there's a couple different quick action buttons. You also see them called behaviors in Copilot Studio. And these are here to help our users kind of understand questions to ask the agent, kind of give foundation for our users to understand how to interact with that agent. So maybe I'm curious and I want to figure out, can I work from home? Let's figure that one out. So I'm going to publish that question right into there. And all I do is hit that button and then hit the arrow to enter that. And on the back end, this is actually grounded in SharePoint sites and that ServiceNow connector. And you can see right away, this is coming from a document within my HR site. So it's automatically giving me the kind of information of where this is coming from. And then it's sourcing through that information and spitting that answer back out to me in its own reasoning, based on the prompt that it's give it to me. Whew. based on how I ask that question. So that's really cool. I've got information that's coming directly from SharePoint side, but let's refresh this. And I'm going to, maybe I'm a doctor and I need to access VPN on maybe my phone for Epic Rover, maybe my laptop, because I need to get access to Epic or some kind of information system that is behind the VPN. So let's see if my agent can help me with that. So simple question: how do I get VPN on my phone? Um, and so right now it's looking through those different databases, and you're going to see something different here. So the last piece of information that we looked at, um, it looked at a document within our SharePoint library. So we actually have an HR. It was based on an HR SharePoint site and the document library here. This one is actually pulling from ServiceNow. So we can see here at the bottom how to configure VPN for Apple devices. So it's sourcing through different knowledge bases within ServiceNow, which is super cool. So um, the important thing here is we can have multiple sources of information. So if we don't have to have everything in a one SharePoint site or multiple SharePoint sites, we can have them in external services, and I'll go over what those connectors look like. But that's what that experience looks like to the end user. So they can interact with this agent, ask a variety of different questions from volunteer time off, my time off, parental leave, insurance benefits, and so forth. So being able to interact with that agent, as long as that we have got a robust, those are our document libraries and our knowledge bases have the answers to those questions, the agent will be able to utilize those to give that information back to the agent. All right, pretty cool. So let's actually take a look at how I made this. So I'm going to drop into the admin side of things. So I've got a different persona set up as a different work profile in Edge, so it's easy for me to switch. And I've already preloaded my agent here in Copilot Studio. So you see I've got my library, and then here's Polly. I'm looking at it. So now we're looking at the guts of the agent, and let's kind of go straight down from top down. So when we're building my agent, we've got our description. This is your persona. This is you're giving that user that persona, and whether that's with all the description plus act as an HR administrator with 20 years of experience and so forth. So you give the persona that you want, and then you give the instructions to the agent. So you are an agent that does this, this, and this. So give detailed instructions to help the agent really understand how to comprehend the questions and then interact with that user in a certain way. And then we've got our knowledge sources here. So you see, I've got three different knowledge sources here. I've got my ServiceNow connector, I've got my policies and benefits document library, and I get my HR site. So I'm going to go over all of these. So in my ServiceNow connector, that is something I already configured directly within Copilot Studio. In another video, I'll go over how we kind of build those different connectors, but this is a graph connector. So there's two different connectors within that we can utilize within Copilot Studio. The graph connector is a read-only feed from ServiceNow. So this is really good for things like knowledge bases, policies, and stuff like that, where we only need to read information from that. As well as the graph connector is super helpful because part of that is it kind of brings that into the tenant as well. And then you've got actions here. These are plugins, and there's a ServiceNow plugin that allows you to do a lot more stuff than the graph connector. But the plugin can be a read and a write feed. So we can do things like bringing in live feeds of incidents, or being able to write back to ServiceNow if we want to create an incident or update an incident. Not something that we're going to go over in today's, but some different ServiceNow's connectors. And if you're curious on how we initially set up the the graph connector, not the plugin, but the graph connector, it's not a complicated process. So we're going to go over to the Microsoft Admin Center, and we're going to go over to Settings and Search and Intelligence. And once we're there, we're going to go to our data sources. You're going to see here I already have a ServiceNow connector set up, but it's fairly easy to get get that connection added. So you're going to hit Add Connection, and then we've got a variety of different connectors here that you can plug into, but we've got ServiceNow Tickets and ServiceNow Knowledge. I want to bring my knowledge in because that's where all my policies and benefits and all of that stuff is. So I'm going to click on Knowledge, and I'm going to hit Next, and then just follow the instructions here. You're going to plug in your ServiceNow URL and do your authentication and so forth. But that's how you set up the initial knowledge base connector. So fairly easy, not too complicated to do, but that's what I have there, and that's where all my like VPN, my MDM policies, my VPN policies, and all of that for this demo tenant is. And then I've also got my policies and benefits document library and my HR site. And so what that looks like, I'm pulling in all of the stuff from this site here. This is my demo HR site that has a variety of different content in here for my users, and I'm also pulling in things from my document library. So in my document library, I've got documents and then it's all held within my policies and benefits. And I've got a variety of different policies and benefits that I use Copilot to create on it, to be honest, but I've uploaded all of those in here. So that's what makes up all of my knowledge bases here. And then important thing to do is disable the web browsing. So I wanted to make sure that it's only utilizing these specific knowledge bases. So make sure you disable that so it's not hunting out for the web to add to that additional knowledge that you have in there. So that's super important. And then your starter prompts. This is where you can edit kind of those quick action buttons. And this is super, I would say super important for your end users. Like I said, it allows them to really understand questions that they can ask the agent and understand how they should be interacting with those agents. So really think about some of the questions that you have here and so forth to give your users better understanding of how to interact with that agent. So once you have those all done, you're kind of set. So once you have all those up at the right-hand side, make sure you hit this refresh button, especially if you make any changes, especially to the starter prompts or instructions and so forth. But test out your agent, make sure everything works. You already saw that it's published and I'm working with that agent. So I'm not going to test it here, but give some time and make sure that everything works like you want it to work. And then when you're ready to do that, you can hit publish here, and that will give you the option to the sharing option. So you would hit everyone. And then once you hit publish, that should go to your team's admin. Additionally, you can go over to the bottom here and hit this availability options and hit share with everyone and then publish that. And then that will go to your team's admin to approve. So what that looks like is once you've published that, so right now in this state, only you can access this. So if we want to make sure that that everyone in our tenant can access that and have better controls around all of that, we need to publish it. So for the sake of this, I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So this will put a new versioning on this agent. This will take a minute or two. If you need to, go grab some coffee, go grab an energy drink. I got my Pepsi Zero Sugar here. And I'm also going to go down here. I'm going to hit this. Share this agent with your organization. You'll see this pop up here, and I'm going to hit yes. So right now, this is sending this over to my team's app administrator to approve. It's going to take a minute here for that to publish as well. So continue drinking that coffee or that Pepsi Zero Sugar, and you're good. All right, so everything looks good here. It should be there. All right, so I'm going to go over to my Teams Admin Center, and I'm going to go to Team Apps here, Manage Apps, and then I'm going to search for the agent. I find that the easiest because there's lots of applications in here, so search is your friend. And there it is, Policy Benefits and Policy Assistant. And you'll see here that I have an update here. If this is the first time you're publishing that, you're going to see an approval or you'll drop down that and hit a denial there. But in this case, I've already published it and I made an update. So I need some changes maybe to the description, to the instructions, to the starter prompts or something like that. So I'm going to publish this update here. And once you publish that, that will go out. Anyone that's got it already installed, give it some time. It'll eventually update there. But that's what you're going to need to do it from an administrator level. And then if you want to get granular, this is where you would build some policies around that and approve that agent to the two different security groups via policy. But for now, this is going through this mechanism. I publish that as an org-wide. So anyone can go in there and search for that agent and interact with that agent. So that's what that process looks like. To kind of quickly go over here, we've got built it in Copilot Studio, put your description, your instructions, build out your knowledge base, make sure you disable web content unless you need web content for some reason, build out your starter prompts, and then publish that, and then make sure you approve that in Teams Administrator. Additionally, you can go into MS Admin as well, and you can also kind of approve and block certain agents as well within Microsoft Admin as well. So that's another avenue that you can go through as well. But that is how I published, and that's how I made and published this agent. Now, some important tips here. When you're building these, make sure you're adding knowledge bases that users can access. So especially if you've got certain privileges on SharePoint sites, if we're leveraging purview and there's certain sensitivity labels that only certain users can have access to, they're not, especially if there's certain documents they have access to and certain documents that they don't on any of those sites, they're only going to be getting part of that content from the AI. So the AI will abide by any policies, sensitivity labels, and stuff like that that you've got built from Purview, and others to make sure that those users can only access that content that they have. So make sure you're cognizant of that as when you're building your knowledge bases. Make sure that users can actually access those knowledge bases as well when you're building the ServiceNow connector and so forth. There's certain privileges in there where you can have them authenticate and so forth, especially when we're using the plugin to do that read and write field there. But just an important one there. And then the other one, because sometimes I get really excited. I'm like, I'm going to build my SharePoint site. So I'm going to build my agent. Everything's going to be hunky dory. When you build your SharePoint site and you have the content in there, make sure to give it some time, because when we add that content, it has to go through a crawl. So to be able to get part of that semantic index for that agent to be able to interact with. So give it about 24 hours, and then test your agent. Because if you added a whole bunch of policy documents to an existing SharePoint site and then built your agent and started testing it, you're probably not going to get the information back that you want, because that information is probably not cached yet into that semantic index. Same with the ServiceNow connector. If you just created the connection and so forth, give it 24 hours, because it's got to go through that crawl to pull that information in. So I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys are excited as me and kind of just building really cool stuff for our end users, and kind of giving you some examples around what we can do with Copilot. There's a lot of cool things that we can do, and it really allows our end users to be able to interact, find things, and get creative of how they get information and build new stuff. So with that, have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again. Bye.